Sometimes the pain is not loud at all. It is not a dramatic ending, not a big rejection. Sometimes it is something quieter, something that slowly builds over time. The feeling that no matter how much you care, you are never truly the one people choose first. You begin noticing it in small moments. People leaving more easily than you would. Conversations where you care more than the other person does. Relationships where you keep giving a little more than you receive back. And after enough experiences like that, something inside you starts becoming tired. Not angry, not bitter, just quietly hurt. Because deep down, every human heart wants to feel chosen, wanted, important to someone, not tolerated, not temporary, not almost loved. And maybe lately, you have started asking yourself a painful question. What is wrong with me? Why does it feel like other people are easier to love? Why does it feel like others are chosen naturally while you are simply there? And the hardest part is that you may not even say these thoughts out loud. You carry them quietly, behind normal conversations, behind smiles, behind pretending that it does not affect you anymore. But it does affect you. Because being emotionally overlooked again and again creates a very specific kind of sadness. A sadness that slowly turns into self-doubt. You begin wondering if maybe you are too much or not enough, too emotional, too quiet, too difficult to fully love. And after a while, you stop expecting people to stay completely. You start preparing yourself for distance, even while connection is still happening. Because part of you already expects to eventually become unimportant again. And carrying that feeling for a long time becomes exhausting. Not only emotionally, but deeply inside your sense of worth. And if this is where you are right now, there is nothing weak about you, nothing broken, nothing shameful. You are simply tired of feeling emotionally replaceable. And after feeling this way for a long time, something inside you slowly begins to change. You stop fully relaxing inside connection. Even when someone is kind to you, even when things seem good, part of you still waits for distance to appear. Because when a person has felt emotionally overlooked too many times, their heart learns to prepare for loss before it even happens. So instead of feeling safe, you begin watching carefully, listening closely, looking for signs that someone is losing interest. And sometimes, even small changes start feeling heavy. A slower reply, less warmth in their voice, a little more distance than before. And suddenly, your chest fills with that familiar feeling again. The feeling that you are slowly becoming less important to someone. And maybe what hurts most is not rejection itself. Maybe it is how familiar that feeling has become. Like your heart already knows the story before it fully happens. So you begin protecting yourself in quiet ways. You become less open, less expressive, less willing to fully trust connection. Not because you do not want love, but because part of you is exhausted from hoping too much. And after enough disappointment, hope itself can start feeling dangerous. Because every time you allow yourself to believe you matter deeply to someone, there is also fear. Fear that one day they will realize you were never truly their first choice. And carrying that fear for a long time becomes emotionally exhausting. Not only in relationships, but inside your entire sense of connection with people. You begin feeling replaceable everywhere. Easy to forget, easy to leave behind. And slowly, without meaning to, you may begin shrinking yourself just to avoid future pain. Asking for less, expecting less, needing less, at least pretending to. But deep down, your heart still wants what every human heart wants: to feel important to someone, to feel safe in connection, to feel fully chosen without constantly fearing that love will disappear. And if you are tired right now, tired of carrying this feeling alone, there is a reason for that. Because your heart was never meant to live constantly preparing to be left behind. And after carrying this fear for a very long time, something inside you slowly becomes tired. Not tired of caring, not tired of love, tired of constantly wondering whether you matter enough for someone to stay. Because after enough disappointment, many people begin believing that if they just change something about themselves, things would finally feel safe. Maybe if you were easier, more understanding, less emotional, less difficult to fully choose. And quietly, without fully realizing it, you may have spent a very long time trying to become someone who feels impossible to leave. But carrying that pressure for too long becomes exhausting too. Because no heart can endlessly work for emotional safety without eventually growing tired. And maybe slowly, very slowly, something inside you is becoming tired of carrying all the blame alone. Not anger, not bitterness, just exhaustion. Exhaustion from constantly wondering what you could have done differently to make people stay longer, to make them care more deeply, to make yourself feel unforgettable to someone. But the truth is, a human heart cannot stay healthy while constantly trying to earn emotional security. Because real connection is not built through fear of abandonment. And real love does not require you to quietly disappear just to keep someone close. For a long time, you may have believed that if you were softer, easier, less emotional, less needy, people would finally choose you fully. But changing yourself endlessly does not create safety inside connection. It only creates exhaustion. Because no matter how much you adjust yourself, a heart that fears being unwanted will still keep searching for signs of rejection. And that is such a painful way to live emotionally. Always analyzing, always preparing, always trying to stay emotionally valuable enough not to be left behind. But maybe your worth was never supposed to depend on how hard you work to keep people close. Maybe your value does not become smaller every time someone fails to choose you properly. Because people's inability to love consistently is not proof that you are unlovable. And people leaving does not automatically mean you were lacking something important. Sometimes it simply means they could not meet you in the depth of connection your heart truly needed. And maybe right now, you do not fully believe that yet. Maybe part of you still feels emotionally replaceable, still afraid of becoming forgettable to people you love deeply. But slowly, your heart can begin learning something different. That being deeply caring was never your weakness. And that needing real connection does not make you too much. And maybe healing from this feeling does not happen the moment someone finally chooses you. Maybe it begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself while waiting for that choice. Because for so long, your heart has been standing at the edge of connection, asking the same quiet question: am I important enough to stay? And carrying that question through relationships, friendships, and emotional closeness becomes deeply exhausting. Especially when part of you has spent years believing that love is something you must constantly earn. But real emotional safety does not feel like constant uncertainty. It does not feel like always trying harder to avoid being left behind. And it does not require you to become smaller just to remain wanted. Because the right connection does not make you feel emotionally temporary. It does not leave you constantly questioning your place in someone's life. And maybe part of your healing is finally allowing yourself to stop chasing the feeling of being chosen by people who only loved you halfway. Not because you stopped caring, not because your heart became cold, but because you are beginning to understand that your worth cannot survive being placed entirely inside other people's hands. For so long, you have measured your value through attention, through consistency, through whether people stayed. But your heart was never meant to live constantly waiting for proof that it matters. You matter even in moments when people fail to recognize your depth. You matter even when someone cannot love you the way you needed. And you matter even after disappointment made you question yourself again and again. Because being deeply loving was never the problem. Being emotionally open was never the mistake. Your heart simply became tired from giving so much importance to people who were unsure how to hold it carefully. And tonight, you do not need to convince anyone to choose you. Not for these few moments. Not while you are here. You can let your breathing slow down. You can let your shoulders soften. You can stop carrying the fear of being unwanted for a little while. Because slowly, very slowly, your heart is learning that love should feel like peace too. And little by little, you are finding your way back to yourself again.